continuing our lecture on tissues of the human body, and now we're moving on to the fluid connective tissues. So for fluid connective tissues, we have two major types of fluid connective tissues. Now remember, something that is a tissue means it's going to be made of specialized cells, and it's going to create some sort of matrix. What we're going to look at first is going to be looking at blood, and what you can see from this diagram, it is a schematic showing you kind of deoxygenated blood flowing into the heart, and then flowing out of the heart you have the oxygenated blood, and then that oxygenated blood, as it goes through the different parts of the body, is going to allow us to actually create lymph. That lymph is then going to be cleaned, and then it's actually going to be deposited back in to our cardiovascular system. So these two fluids are interconnected, and one basically makes and comprises the other one. So when we talk about blood, blood is going to have specialized cells. It's going to have all those different types of blood cells, like your red blood cells, your white blood cells, and your platelets. The matrix that is created is going to be the plasma, so that's the fluid portion of the blood that's going to be in there, and it does have protein fibers mixed within it as well. So blood is a fluid connective tissue. It is derived from bone. Now, the lymph is going to be created from the blood that we just talked about. So lymph is going to have lymphocytes that are going to be associated with it, which is a type of white blood cell. The lymph itself is created directly from the blood, pushing its plasma out into the interstitial fluid. Interstitial fluid is then going to enter into our lymphatic vessels, and that's what creates our lymph. Once that lymph is clean, it's going to be deposited right back into our blood vessels to go to our heart. And then that process just continues so we can maintain homeostasis in our body. Now we're moving on to our supportive connective tissues. For our supportive connective tissues, we have two major ones. We're going to have both cartilage and bone. Both of these, again, are giving us structure and framework to our body. And when we look at these, we're not going to have to go into a whole lot of detail. What I want you to know is be able to identify that these two are supportive connective tissues and the types of cells that are associated with each. So if we look at cartilage first, the cells associated with it, if you look in here, this is elastic cartilage. You can see site at the end over here. Site just means cell. So cartilage cells are going to be chondrocytes. The chondrocytes sit in lacuna, which are just these little open spaces within the matrix. For cartilage, the matrix is a very firm gel-like substance, so it's not as hard as bone, but like if you look at your ear and things, you can bend your ear, which you cannot do with your bone because the cartilage is going to be gel-like. It allows you to bend the tissue without actually damaging the structure, and it goes right back to its original shape. Bone, on the other hand, are going to have osteocytes. So site as a root word meaning cell, osteo meaning bone. They also sit into lacuna, which are going to be those big open spaces. So the osteocytes sit in there. The osteocytes are responsible for creating the matrix, but the matrix in this case is going to be a very hardened, calcified structure that's going to give bone its strength. It is highly vascularized as well, so if you see this very center circle, this is called the central canal, you have blood vessels that run directly through here and are going to feed the tissue that's going to be surrounding it, so they have direct access to blood supply. Your cartilage that we just mentioned earlier is avascular. There's actually no blood supply that's going directly to it, which is why it's actually harder to heal cartilage than it is to heal bone. Now, we'll oftentimes refer to tissue membranes, or just membranes and linings of different body cavities, different organs, and things like that. When we refer to tissue membranes, we're actually referring to where epithelium and connective tissue are coming together. So it's not just one of those tissues, it's both of those combined that are creating this lining that we're talking about. So we have four specific ones that we're going to be looking at. So starting at the top with A, mucous membranes. Mucous membranes are what basically make everything in your body look slimy because they're secreting mucus. And they're secreting mucus because there are glands within that epithelial layer that are going to be releasing mucus. That mucus is going to help to keep things moist. It's going to help with reducing friction by providing lubrication. It is also sometimes used to catch things so that they stick in that place so that you can clean them out later. But it's also really important for absorption and secretion. So anytime you have things that need to go in and out of the cells, they have to be dissolved within some sort of fluid so that it can move in and out. So that mucous membrane provides that mucus in order to do that. So looking at the labeling, notice here's the mucus secretion at the top, being created by this mucus cell right in here, which is embedded within our epithelium. And looking at these, we should be able to know how to name this because we have long elongated cells in here in a single layer. So this is going to be a simple columnar epithelium. And then directly below that, we have areolar tissue that's connecting to this basement membrane underneath the epithelium. This connective tissue that is areolar tissue is specifically referred to as lamina propria. It's just the general one that we have that's creating tissue membranes. Our next membrane we're looking at are serous membranes. We talked about this earlier in chapter 1 with the lining of the different body cavities that had the serous membranes. So serous membranes will make serous fluid. So that serous fluid is going to line that particular membrane to keep it lubricated. And then you're going to have right underneath it a mesothelium layer. So this is your epithelial layer, and we should be able to look at that to see what kind of cells they are. They are flattened. It's a single layer. So we would refer to this as simple squamous tissue. And then directly under that, attached to the basement membrane, is more areolar connective tissue right here. Part C, the cutaneous membrane. This is actually what you refer to as your skin. So the cutaneous membrane is another name for your skin, and it refers both to the epithelial tissue on top and then the underlying connective tissue made of areolar or loose connective tissue as well as dense irregular connective tissue. So when we talk about your skin, skin is your epidermis with this epithelial layer as well as the dermis that's going to be underlying it. Dermis is made up of loose connective and dense connective tissue. All right, our last membrane we're looking at are synovial membranes. Synovial membranes are associated with our joints, our freely movable joints, so like your shoulder and your knee, that sort of thing. Synovial membranes, so this little pink guy right here, is going to be lining the joint capsules, and they are going to be secreting synovial fluid. So you have the synovial fluid that's going to be in there lubricating that joint and making sure bone is not hitting bone in there. So if we look at, again, the different tissues that you have your epithelial cells that are going to be right here lining this particular area, and then we have areolar tissue, again, loose connective tissue that's going to be filling that particular area. So you should be able to identify and label the different structures and whether it's epithelium and connective tissue and the type of connective tissue and the type of epithelium associated with each. We can finally move away from connective tissue into our next tissue. So this is our muscle tissue. So this is our third tissue. So remember we talked about epithelium, then we talked about connective tissue, and now we're talking about muscle tissue, and then the last tissue, nervous tissue, we'll talk about after that. We have 3 different categories of muscle tissue. So all of these are going to be made of muscle cells, but structurally the muscle cells are going to look different depending on which one we're talking about. So for each of these 3, what I'm going to want you to do is know the name of them, know that they are muscle tissue, and you need to know where they're located and how they're going to appear and whether or not you can control them. So those 3 aspects. So first we have our skeletal muscle at the top, we have cardiac muscle, and then we have smooth muscle tissue. Skeletal muscle tissue is muscle that is attached to your skeleton or your bone. So this is the one we think about and responsible for your movement of your body. So those are all skeletal muscles. Now, if we look at the picture over here, this is a micrograph showing what skeletal muscle looks like, and it looks like it has all these little stripes or striations that are going through it. Those muscle striations that you have refer to it as being a striated muscle. So you need to know it's attached to bone and it's a striated muscle and that they are voluntary muscles. We know that they're voluntary because you decide when you want to move your arm and your legs. So you are controlling when that is going to happen, and that is a conscious sort of thing. The next is going to be cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle is exclusively found within the heart. The cells themselves are going to be a lot smaller than the skeletal muscle cells, but if you look, it does still have that nice little striped pattern to it. So cardiac muscle is found in the heart. It is striated, but it's an involuntary muscle. You don't decide when your heart is going to contract. Our last group is going to be smooth muscle. So our smooth muscle tissue, you can see here, does not have those striations in there. So we would consider this a non-striated muscle. So it's non-striated, and smooth muscle is found in your viscera, your internal organs, like your esophagus, your stomach, your urinary bladder. So those all still contract. They're all there to squeeze and move substances around, so they have to have that ability to contract. But you don't have conscious control over it, so it's going to be involuntary. So your smooth muscle are found in your organs, your viscera. They are going to be non-striated, and they are involuntary. All right, our last tissue is going to be nervous tissue. For nervous tissue, there are two different cells that I'm going to want you to know, one of which is going to be the neuron, and the other is going to be neuroglia. So when people think of nervous tissue, generally what they're thinking of are going to be neurons. And these are cells that are actively sending electrical impulses through your body. They are the ones that are allowing you to communicate from your brain to your organs, from your sensory receptors to your brain. So these are actively sending signals that are going to be called propagating electrical impulses. So if you propagate an electrical impulse, you're sending it through that particular neuron. So those are going to be our neurons. Neuroglia, on the other hand, are referred to as our nerve glue. That's what glia is going to look like, glue. These are supportive cells. They are going to be physically holding those neurons in place. They are going to be also feeding it nutrients. So they're going to be providing it support by giving it nutrients. They are going to be emotionally supporting it. No, not actually emotionally supporting it. They are going to be there to support the neurons. They do not actively send any signals that are going to go in and out of the body, but they're going to help the neurons to do so by holding them in place, by providing them with nutrients, and then always monitoring that interstitial fluid around it to make sure everything is going to be okay. 90% of your cells are going to be neuroglia. So, you know, that stat where like people are saying, you only use 10% of your brain. That is nonsense. 90% of your brain and your nervous tissue is actually going to be neuroglia, and they're not actively supposed to be sending signals. So they're not supposed to be doing that anyway. So that is nonsense. Don't use that stat.